like sound and music can really make or break a movie. And I feel like in this one, it really just puts the bow on top in terms of like helping to like carry the story and indicate to the viewers like the changes in emotion
Sure.
and the ebb and flow, especially when you have those battle scenes and having like it's so like there's visual chaos. Like when you have those big battle scenes, like the opening, it's chaos, and they do a really good job of depicting that chaos. But the music is what helps you to understand the ebb and flow of the battle.
And now time for The Viewing Room with Adam and Ethan.
Welcome to the Viewing Room, where we talk about films new and old, local and global. Today we're going to be talking about Gladiator. It had a budget of 103 million USD and was released on May 5th, 2000. I wish you could see what I saw from my angle there. That was crazy.
Oh boy.
Couple things off the hop.
Okay. I'm on coke. Holy shit.
Yeah, I know. This is kind of how the Ghostbusters episode started. I was watching that today, and I was like, whoa. 103 million USD budget. Pretty impressive.
In 2000, that's
pretty impressive. And the sequel's budget, Gladiator 2, which is coming out at the time of this next week, I guess. That has a budget of $300 million.
Ooh-wee.
Yes, and they were only granted, like, I think 190 million or something like that, 160 something. And then all of a sudden it started just getting more and more. So whoops.
Is it the same director as Ridley Scott doing too?
I'm not sure about that. I think so. Yeah, I think
I would hope so.
Yeah. Fun fact: May 5th, 2000. Okay, the 5 innermost planets aligned within 20 degrees of the sun. Okay, this is something that was like they knew it was going to happen. I think the next time it's going to happen is 2030, September 2030. It was called the ultimate disaster because they thought the world was going to be like not over, but like with all these things being aligned with the sun, like it would block things out or something like that, and like all the ice would melt or whatever in Antarctica, and like people would die and it would cause tsunamis and like weather events and stuff, and all the scientists were like, guys, no, that's not going to happen, but everyone else was like, oh my god, Y2K all over again. No,
it's the end of the world as we know it.
Exactly.
But I feel fine.
But no, nothing happened, and there's no scientific evidence to back up that events like this cause any trouble to the Earth because they're too far away to simply do anything. But that's a fun fact for you.
That is a very fun.
Very fun fact that happened the same day this
It's
film
funnier
released.
if it was like an asteroid slammed into the Earth and killed half the population, but you know.
Well, you want to know something? I was just thinking about this. That was so morbid, first of all.
I know,
so
right?
I'm going to ignore that. I'm electing to ignore that right now so I can get this out. Imagine this, right? There's hysteria because there's people on the street with signs that like the end is nigh, right? You know, all of a sudden you look out your window, you can see like Venus and Saturn and crap like that all lined up perfectly, right? With the sun. That's cool. Probably wouldn't be able to see that. Whatever, right? And everyone's like, oh my God, this is like historical and people are going to die. And you're like, well, time to go see Gladiator in theaters. Like, do you think that affected their sales? Like, could you imagine?
Funny.
You're just like sitting, it's Y2K, and you're like watching like Wayne's World in your basement. like, I don't know.
Oh.
Like, I'm just saying. Like, I do think it's funny how that might have affected sales in a way, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it had too much of an impact because the film did gross 465 million USD at the global box office, which is good. 4 times the amount at 100 million, good. You know. But you do, you know, it's a historical epic. We'll talk about historical.
Yeah, we use historical lightly.
Yeah, we'll use historical lightly, right? Obviously, the real life Maximus did not have the same ending, and obviously Commodus is actually, I think, he was more evil, I think, actually, in actual history. My voice is cracking because I could be spreading complete misinformation, but I feel like I was reading somewhere today that like he would like at the end of the movie when he stabs Russell Crowe, Spoiler alert.
If you like all these movies, if you haven't seen this movie by now, you're 24 years late.
Yeah, well, uh, you know how he like stabs him in the lung and he
Yeah.
starts like he can't really breathe that well. The real Commodus or Commodus, however you say that, Commodus would do that, or we could call him Caesar. Let's define that term right now. Do we want to call him the new Caesar, Commodus? What do you want?
Well, sure.
Whatever. We'll just call him names. He would do the same thing, but he would like really cripple people. Like he would stab them in the back or like in the spine or stuff like that, and then he would like tie them together with other peasants and stuff like that, and then execute them in the ring. Like yeah, so he would do the same thing. He was an emperor who would fight. I think he was called like Emperor of the Ring or something like that, or the Colosseum. And he elected to change the name of Rome to like something about the Colosseum. I was doing a lot of Roman history studying today, as one does when they wake up, right?
I haven't. I honestly, my Roman history is a little bit lacking. Other areas of history I know a little better.
But it is interesting because
for sure
that aspect was true. And Commodus would do that to people and peasants and such. And he would only fight them after crippling them in such a way and hiding their wounds in armor, essentially, right? So same thing he does to Maximus or Russell Crowe in this movie. Although that is not a historical accurate event. That did not happen. And I don't know really the story about the real Maximus because I want to focus on Russell Crowe's Maximus.
Yes.
Because Best Actor at the Oscars, this film was nominated for 12 Oscars. That's right, yeah. Nominated for 12. Do you want to guess the 5 it won? It won 5. That's impressive.
Okay. Well, you said best acting.
Yeah, that's one. I gave you one.
Score or music.
Best sound, yeah.
Sound. Okay.
Yeah. Which dare I say?
Costume or production design.
Yes, that's 3.
Cinematography.
Nope.
No. Trying to think what else this one.
This is a fun little game.
Because I don't follow the Oscars at all.
Sure.
Like I don't pay attention to them at all, so I have no idea what it was. I don't even know any more categories than that, really.
Okay, so it also won Best Effects / Visual Effects.
Really?
So I imagine that's
The flashback scenes, I guess.
that's not cinematography.
Cinematography is very different than visual effects, Gary.
No, like so I imagine that certain effects like having like the wagon step and like big bursts of sand coming out and
Okay, yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess I'm used to the modern special effects that are CGI vomit, and
Right.
At that time, it was still a little bit more subtle and tasteful.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I also want to talk about an aspect of this film that I didn't like.
Okay. Well, let's finish
but
off
we'll
the
finish
Oscars.
that. And it won Best Picture.
Oh, okay.
Now that's impressive. Obviously, being nominated for that many Oscars and winning that.
Winning 5 in one run.
It's incredible. Best sound or like best score, whatever.
Hans Zimmer is. He is the John
I'm
Williams
gonna say
of the
something
modern era.
controversial.
Oh God, don't.
I think he's great. He does the Dune stuff, right? Yeah, he does the Dune soundtrack.
Yeah, he does.
I don't think Gladiator is his best work.
Oh, it's not.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know what Gladiator was up against because I didn't research this. Even now, I can't remember a single beat of the Gladiator score. It did not spark
Gary, do you know any of the songs from Gladiator?
as much passion.
What you don't?
You know what I mean? I think, in my opinion, I enjoyed the movie, but I thought the score was kind of forgettable.
don't
like
see how you think
a
that.
perfect example of like a modern film, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Great movie, fantastic score.
You leave the theater, that shit's in your head. You're like, burr, burr. Like I'm singing that shit today, and that came out 2 years ago, right? This felt forgettable, unfortunately, right? And I hate to say it.
Okay,
I know
I'm
people
gonna challenge you on that.
but-
Though. I'm gonna challenge you on that. I'm not gonna disagree that it's not the most memorable score ever, because it's not. However, to me, that's not what makes a movie best sound or best score. To me, it's the sound and the score that supports the picture the best, and I feel like it really does that in this movie. Like sound and music can really make or break a movie. And I feel like in this one, it really just puts the bow on top in terms of like helping to like carry the story and indicate to the viewers like the changes in emotion
Sure.
and the ebb and flow, especially when you have those battle scenes and having like it's so like there's visual chaos. Like when you have those big battle scenes, like the opening, it's chaos, and they do a really good job of depicting that chaos. But the music is what helps you to understand the ebb and flow of the battle, right? Like when it's the wild charge, it's frenzied music, and then when it's like the hero's last stand, you got like soaring strings, and so I feel like that's what happens in this movie. It might not be memorable, but in the moment,
Sure.
It really makes the movie.
And I'm going to agree with you there because I really agree with what you said. And while I was making the point that it's forgettable, in my opinion, in my opinion, again, if I like listen to it on Spotify or something, maybe I'd find it less forgettable. But yeah, it does match up. I wasn't sitting there thinking the music's out of place, right? And that's part of having great sound,
Right.
is that you don't notice if anything's out of place. It's almost like a hidden art because your whole goal is not to think like, oh, I liked the sound of that movie. It's like, wow, I felt I was there.
It's the same
right?
with special effects, right? The best special
Sure.
effects are ones you don't notice.
Right. And so, again, I agree with you on that front, right? I don't know what it was up against that may have had a better score and whatnot or more memorable. I think it's an aspect. I think the being memorable or whatever and having something that, like, impacts obviously is an effect, right? Like, I think that's something that goes into effect when they think of Best Picture, for sure.
Yeah.
Right? A memorable, lasting thing, which is why I think this movie won Best Picture. But yes, I agree with you. And I think you've swayed me in a bit, and why I think it might be a little bit better now too is because there is that hidden aspect of, oh yeah, you didn't notice it, and that's a good thing, right? And you're right, it does fit, and I think that is overall a better qualification, right? I think, in my opinion, yes, there's an element of memorability that should go into deciding.
I'll give you that. Yep.
But yes, I do agree with you. I was thinking kind of narrow-minded there, and I think you made a very good point, and I'm happy you said that because I wholeheartedly agree.
Cool.
So that's great. Cast. Russell Crowe playing Maximus. We have Joaquin Phoenix playing the new Caesar or Commodus. And Connie Nielsen as Lucilla. Lucilla? I said that right, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic cast,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
I would
great
say.
cast. Russell Crowe's awesome in this.
Russell Crowe's
Joaquin
fantastic.
Phoenix is amazing in this too.
Yeah, I read
Like-
some stuff too that, he wasn't really proud of it. He didn't think it was his best work. He didn't enjoy playing it a lot, and he gained weight for the role. To which Ridley Scott, who directed this, told him to drop because he was gaining weight throughout the production. He was like, well, I'm supposed to be like a fat mole or whatever he said because I'm now the emperor of Rome and I'm going to sit here and eat grapes all day. And Ridley Scott was like, yeah, no, you're not going to do that. Like, yeah, so lose the weight immediately. No, he said drop the weight immediately, I think was the quote I read in the IGN article or whatever. That is one thing. There you go. I guess, should we read a synopsis?
Yeah,
do you have anything you want to say preliminary?
No, not really.
Okay. I'll hit up with the synopsis. All right. Gladiator film synopsis. This is written very bad, by the way. So this is like definitely a fan-made synopsis. So I'm gonna try and get through it, but I can already tell there's no punctuation.
Okay. Go.
What are you doing?
Go.
What are you scheming? Go to camera
I'm
2
not
for a second.
scheming anything.
No, you're sitting there like this. You're sitting there like Dr. Evil. Like, okay, what?
Help! I've been badly burned.
Okay.
You shot me.
I'm gonna start, but if you start scheming, I'm gonna stop. Okay. Set in Roman times, the story. Okay. If you're gonna do it like immediately. Just start doing it, and I'll read this out. Okay. You're welcome. You're more than welcome to do it, but don't do it halfway through.
I'm not gonna do it.
Okay, fine. Set in Roman times, the story of a once powerful general forced to become a common gladiator. The emperor's son is enraged when he is passed over his heir in favor of his father's favorite general. He kills his father and arranges the murder of the general's family.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the general is sold into slavery to be trained as a gladiator. But his subsequent popularity in the arena threatens the throne. Fun movie. This is a fun movie.
It's a fun
I
movie.
would say,
And also, I feel like it's not just like fun. It's like it's powerful in a way, you know. Like
yes.
it leaves you feeling something.
There's some great lines.
Mm-hmm.
Are you not entertained? Right? Good stuff. Russell Crowe hated all of it. Russell Crowe famously hated the script and the dialogue, saying, I think he told the writer at one point, I forget the exact quote, but it was essentially like, your writing sucks, but thankfully I'm a good enough actor that I can make it work, is kind of what he said, which seemed uncharacteristic of him.
Yeah, he's a pretty nice guy.
Because I always thought he was like a super nice guy, and you know, maybe he was just joking or whatever. This is fun. Like, it's hard to read tone.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to assume anything from it. But that is an interesting thing to say to a writer. Like, you know what I mean? If that is true, that came from the head writer himself, like the guy who wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
And he said, to be fair, I do think some of the lines I wrote were pretty crummy. But Russell Crowe was like, thank goodness I'm the world's best actor and can make these lines work.
Yeah.
Is, I think, the direct quote. So that's crazy. And there's stories that he would like walk off set after like reading some of the dialogue or whatever, because it was just like so bad.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I wasn't sitting there thinking like,
No.
maybe it's a testament to how good the acting is, right?
Yeah, right.
But I wasn't thinking. I was sitting there saying like, hell yeah, let's go storm that castle, boys!
Yeah.
Like freaking
Yeah.
javelins and catapults, shield wall, like hold the line.
Yeah,
Like I'm sitting
right?
there like, yeah, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like I'm literally like I'm there. Like
Yeah.
this is what I fantasize. Like when I go to bed at night, like
Yep.
I'm holding the line,
right.
whether it's like MW 2019 or freaking like
Modern Warfare or Braveheart.
Yeah,
or...
exactly. Yeah, I was thinking like, yeah, this is the best Braveheart knockoff I've ever watched. I guess should we hit up like a plot?
You want?
If you want, okay. Well, we have our boy Maximus, right? We start with this epic fight scene. We're fighting in Germania, I believe, right?
Germania.
For the last little battle to basically bring peace back to the empire and unite across, I guess, you know, Rome. So
Yeah.
from Britain, I guess, or like England to like Northern Africa, essentially, where a Roman Empire would be.
Yeah. That was what we learned in History 20.
Sure.
History 20 with Mr. Keeler. So yeah, and that was the class where we
Mr.
shared
Keeler's so awesome, dude.
That was the class where we shared a chair. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
You would come in after me or before me. I don't remember.
Yeah,
exactly.
we also did that in photography, didn't we, too?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of how we met.
Yeah.
We'll do an origin story episode once. Mr. Keeler,
Sometime.
you're a G. Thank you so much for having an awesome history class.
I actually learned stuff.
I did too. One thing I wanted to talk about, because we talked about this in our Shining episode, okay?
Okay.
And I wanted to reference it. I talked about how the titles at the start of the film took me right out of it. Gone, right? Bad, right? Good movie, but bad subtitles didn't fit. The opening title cards in whatever font they are and the color kind of like goldish orange, they work. They
Right.
set the story, and I think they're very powerful.
And they're not taking away from the visuals, right? Because it's just the title cards.
There's just title cards. It says like whatever, blah 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 blah. This year, we're conquering the Roman Empire. Are conquering the last bit of Germania. Boom, we're gonna restore peace and bring power back to the people. Boom, enter in. Is there even opening credits in that line? No, right? So it doesn't take you out. Opening credits wouldn't have hurt, right? I don't think it would have been good or bad thing, but they weren't there. It was just those texts, and it works. And I think that is an example of something that puts you into the story without taking you out of whatever and being like, oh, I have to read before this film. I think it sets the stage.
And it gives you enough history. Like it gives you enough so that you know where we are, what time period, what's happening. But you don't need to know the specifics. They're in, 500 miles west of this province and blah, 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 blah.
And some movies do like the opening, like the Catch Me If You Can. I think that's a good movie.
I haven't seen it.
But like it's like a 3-minute intro of just like Leonardo DiCaprio's character running around from Tom Hanks, like a cartoon Tom Hanks chasing him. And it's like, okay, it's cool. it's like a cool intro, but like I think it's too long. And I do think it was a cool creative intro. It's an interesting way to do it. But some films do it way too long where we're sitting there and I'm like, okay, I just want to watch a movie.
Yeah.
I'm sick of seeing like who the 9th assistant director was. Show me Russell Crowe killing some dudes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think this one had a good balance, and I think when we're comparing it to something like The Shining, the subtitles fit in way better than they did in that movie. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out. How did you feel about that?
I mean, I obviously, like you said, I agree with you.
Okay. We're fighting. We're seeing Russell Crowe. He's a great general.
Yeah.
He strikes fear in the heart of his enemies and hope and prosperity into his allies. He leads them to a victory, and the I guess the emperor, right?
Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius or Caesar comes to him and is like, "Hey, like you're a good dude. Like congratulations on this epic battle." They do something in this battle that I wanted to talk about though. Because we're not going to like dissect the action sequence, right? Unless we had it in front of us, right? But that's something we could do, a series. I was just thinking about that. Like, we could dissect famous battles because the action scenes.
Battle of Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Number 2.
The action scenes in this film are fantastic, and I think it's something they do like incredible.
Yeah.
They do these shots though, and I've never been a huge fan of them, and I kind of was thinking about this when I was watching. It's these low frame rate slow-mo shots, right? Like when you do slow-mo and instead of doing it in 120 FPS slow-mo, you do it in like 20 FPS slow-mo and it kind of like looks kind of fadey, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. It was reminiscent of like if you took out like this like every second frame of what's it called? The ones with Matt Damon, like this Jason Bourne. If you took a Jason Bourne film and took out the second frame and slowed it down, you know what I mean? It feels like that, and I've never been a huge fan. I think having them implemented tells a story in a way, like it's showing chaos on the battlefield. That's what I was
just gonna say.
It's showing like maybe being in your own head and stuff like that, or like showing how chaotic everything is.
I think that's the important thing that a lot of shows miss with those big battles is the chaos.
Yes.
They are so chaotic. I mean, when you think about it, it's a giant mob of men hacking and slashing at each other with dull weapons.
Sure.
And also I think that part of the reason or the way they use them is when somebody's like stunned or they're not, they're in the heat of the battle. They've been, kind of wounded or stunned, and they're like, looking around trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And I think it works. I personally don't have a problem with them. They use them in a lot of movies, and I personally don't have a problem with them. But you know what? More than entitled to your opinion.
I think the concept of it works for sure. I get why it's used, and I think it's good. My problem with it though is when it's done shaky like that, and not necessarily shaky, but like when it's not like a high frame rate enough that it starts to look kind of janky in a way, where it's like I'm almost watching like a disc stutter in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know what? It's an opinion thing. You know what? It probably works great for some people. I just think like if it's done the same way, but it's not as like jittery almost. I think it looks better. Because it just for me, I just don't know.
Fair.
I was
totally
like
fair.
Someone didn't have the shutter speed high enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right?
Fair.
And again, preference, absolutely preference. Is it a thing to nitpick? Like it's super nitpicky is what I'm trying to say. Like it's a complete massive nitpick. It didn't add or take away from the story. It's just something that I wasn't the biggest fan of in terms of the cinematography in that scene. But I think everything else, they do a good job of making it feel larger than life and chaotic and stuff with weird POV angles and stuff of like even horses and stuff and low angle shots of like
the other shots that they use that not a lot of battle scenes use, but the really good ones do is, and they can do it because they have a big budget.
Yeah,
is those really wide shots that show you the whole battlefield.
Yes, and
I really like seeing that because it does give you some context for where things are happening and what's going on. So those are the kind of shots that they included in this that I really liked.
I think, yeah, I'm happy that we talked about that. We should continue the plot.
Yes.
I guess
Plot.
because I can't believe how much we've already talked about. I'm shocked that we got through this much so far. Anyways, Caesar is kind of talking to Maximus, and Commodus comes in on his horse, obviously the son of the emperor, and he's next in line to the throne, or so he thinks, right? And he comes in after the battle is won, and he's like, "Oh man, like I missed the battle." He didn't really miss the battle. He's a coward.
He even admits it. I'm even a coward on the battlefield.
Yeah, like
I'm gonna cry now.
He showed up with his soldiers after the battle was won, because he was scared, right? And he's heir to the throne, and his father is obviously sick. Caesar's kind of like Marcus Aurelius is kind of like, whoa, like not doing so hot now, and peace is kind of being brought over the Roman Empire. So he has some things he wants to get done, but he can't really see to it in this lifetime. So he wants to pass it down to the people, essentially, right? And so he's talking with Maximus, his most esteemed general, and he decides that he wants him to restore the power to the people and basically be the next emperor, right?
Yeah,
restore the Senate, whatever, or senators, and essentially like bring Rome back to what it is and what it should
Being
be,
a
with
true
peaceful.
republic.
Right, exactly. Commodus hears about this, Walking Phoenix, and obviously he's disheartened because, you know, the one thing he's living for essentially is to be the heir to the throne, and now he's hearing that the emperor wants to give an outside party who he respects more, whatever, right? And so he's like obviously upset. He baby rages.
really, he just wants his dad's like love, essentially, and what's the word I'm looking for? Approval. Thank
There you go. Yeah, approval.
Yeah, like he wants to have his dad be proud of him.
Yeah.
And
and it's not like Caesar or Marcus Aurelius is disapproval of him. I think he sees different virtues in Maximus that his son doesn't fit, but he thinks that Maximus might be able to provide for the people of Rome as someone who fought every single battle to bring peace back to the people, right? And someone who has spent over 2 years away from his family to bring justice and fight for something where his own son hasn't, right? And so Joaquin Phoenix, or Commodus, is very distraught by the news that he's not going to be this the next in line, so he kills his father, Caesar, before Caesar can kind of present the word to the people that essentially Russell Crowe's character Maximus is going to be the next emperor and restore the power to the people, right? Yeah. So he kills Marcus Aurelius and his father, and I guess they kind of go to have their funeral and whatever. And Maximus kind of knows something's up, though, right? He kind of knows that between his conversations with Lucilla and amongst other people, that wait a second, the emperor was doing just fine last night when I talked to him. What happened, right? So he assumes that that Commodus killed his father. And it's crazy saying these names over and over again, right? I feel like my brain is just like going.
I just imagine
fuzzy.
living in the Roman Emperor.
Like, say Marcus Aurelius 10 times fast.
Marcus Aurelius, 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 Marcus Aurelius. I can keep going.
That was pretty impressive. That was pretty impressive. Wow. I don't think I could do that. That was pretty impressive. Say Commodus 10 times fast.
Commodus. Oh. I got a few of them out there.
That was pretty good. I gotta hand it to you. That was like Eminem. That's man. Okay. Sorry, I thought that one.
I can't do
better.
Rap God. I'm sorry.
Someone limited. Okay. I can't. Okay. Maximus knows something's up. So he's going to take his soldiers and the people that fought with Rome and leave, I guess, and dip out because whatever, it's not, something's up, right?
Yeah.
And potentially create a little bit of a coup because he knows, but people aren't going to believe him, obviously, that this random general is next in line to the throne. But now he is, right? And so obviously the only two people that know are Maximus and Commodus, and one of them is now currently the emperor. So Commodus orders the killing of Maximus and his family, essentially, so that no one would know, whatever, right?
In a way, I know you haven't seen Game of Thrones, but Maximus's character kind of reminds me of Ned Stark in Game of Thrones.
That's right. Any relation to Tony Stark?
No. The Starks are, the northern, he's the Warden of the North, and but no, just in the way that, so he's the Warden of the North. He's not a politician. He's a fighter, and his buddy Robert Baratheon wants him to come back. Robert Baratheon is the king, wants him to come down south and serve as hand of the king. And he's like, he's not a politician, but like, you're the king, so sure, I'll go do it. And he cannot deal with the politics. He's just too honest. He's too much of a soldier. And of course, he ends up dying, and his family doesn't die. His wife does eventually, but whatever. And it just, in a way, it reminds me of Maximus, where like he's a general, and Marcus Aurelius is like, you're not corrupted by the politics, and he's like, okay, sure, and then he gets outsmarted. Like it just there's to me it just reminds me of Game of Thrones there.
In the wise words of Billy Joel, only the good die young.
Yeah. Only the good die young. That's what I said.
Yeah. And I think I see that in both are true there. Now obviously Maximus is taking a day's ride away from, Germania or wherever they were fighting, and he's going to be executed. But he fights back, and almost like an action sequence that's similar to The Patriot, if you've ever seen that with Mel Gibson.
No.
Kind of reminds me of that. Mel Gibson's crazy in that film. He's like a John Wick with a powdered musket, essentially. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So he escapes, but he knows that his family has also been kind of, I guess, traitors of the empire now is what they are. So it's interesting logic. Obviously, whatever the emperor says goes, right? Strange things. It's a strange movie logic, though, I guess, in my opinion, because everyone thinks the emperor has died of natural causes, right? The only one who thinks otherwise is Maximus, right? And maybe Lucilla, right? But now all of a sudden, within, we'll say, 24 hours of the battle ending and Maximus having thousands of men under his control and being this esteemed general who has fought years and years and years for Rome and its prosperity, within a second, the new emperor is like, oh, he's a traitor. Well, what did he do?
Well, that's the whole point, though, is that Commodus just wants him gone.
Right, I know. It's just,
and it's not like they tell, and what is anybody else going to do? The only people that are going to know about it are some of Maximus's soldiers and Commodus and his guards, who are loyal. His guards are loyal to him. And what are Maximus's soldiers going to do? It's the emperor.
Right, but they are still loyal to him, though. They are still loyal to Maximus. His soldiers are still loyal to him. They still want to follow his orders. You know what I mean? They talk about that in the movie later on.
If Commodus says he's a traitor, he gets executed, what are you going to do?
That's what I mean. They have to listen to him because he's the emperor. But I'm just saying, I feel like they could have found a more compelling way almost to convince other people other than like, oh, he's the emperor. What are you going to do? Right? Just because all of a sudden there's this guy who's fought years and years and years and years for the power to be restored back to the people. And now all the people are like, yeah, kill that traitor. But like, again, like, and his wife and his kid immediately murdered too. Like, come on, like that's pretty crazy, especially when
that's the punishment to me. Like, I think it's exactly what would have happened.
Sure. They have to because it's the emperor, right? They have to.
Yeah.
I just think, like, in my opinion, there could have been another reason for it. Like I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, I just like, to me, I just felt like
it makes sense in terms of the characters and the time period.
And it does. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just upset because it's just like upsetting.
It is. It totally
right?
is.
Maybe I'm just like
when
upset
they-
because that is
when they say kill him and his wife and kid too. You're like, well, what the fuck did they do? But that's the way it was, right? Like,
So, anyways, Maximus escapes his captors and kills the legionaries that are sent to that are going to execute him, right? And he rides off to his homestead to find that his wife and son have been hanged and like essentially set on fire, and he's obviously heartbroken and been distraught to find his family, in such a state. And dude, I'm talking about like a tragic Roman story, dude, and you're like you're disrespecting my boy Russell Crowe, man.
continue.
Okay, well, I will continue. His the audio listeners are gonna hate this episode, dude.
We're sorry.
We need like a live like a translation of like like when the AI voices are like Adam reaches over to Ethan with a weird a mocking hand gesture, right? You know what I mean? What's that called? Described video?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the visually impaired.
This program is brought to you with Describe Video
Yeah.
for
Now, as we go through, Russell Crowe's kind of kidnapped now by the legionaries. He can't really fight back because they overwhelm him with a force, right? And now his wife and kid are killed, and he's essentially sold into slavery.
Yep.
And to become a gladiator and fight for the entertainment of legionaries and emperors and kings, right? And
citizens.
And citizens as well, right? Because it's a spectacle, right? It's a time where, it's like their Olympics, right?
No, because the Olympics were.
Well, whatever, you get it. It's like an Olympic event, right? Whatever. It's
I wouldn't say.
It's like
no.
going to the Super Bowl every single day.
Yes, that's what I would say more. It's more like a football game.
Sure. There we go. Whatever. You got the terminology out. It's like.
Because the Olympics are not wanton violence.
Yeah, but think of what the Olympics could be. Imagine like battle swimming, where like everyone has like a handgun in the water, and and you have 3 bullets.
Are we doing fencing with real swords now?
I mean, that would be cool.
Target shooting against each other?
Well, I'm just trying to think. Like imagine, okay, you're swimming and you have like a teammate, right? And it's like Olympic swimming, like 5 laps each, right? And your teammate all the teammates are like on dry land with like tasers or something, and you have to swim back and forth. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be cool? Like, that would be a spectacle.
Okay.
I think that would be cool. And it takes place at night because everything is cooler at night. I don't know, man. I'm a guy who thinks bobbing for apples should be Olympic sport. That would be cool too. Can we cut all this out? Like, can we seriously cut all of this out?
We'll see. Keep going.
Gary, can we cut our last cutout point out and just chisel this one in?
We'll see. I'll make it work. Maybe.
It's so awkward, dude. No, because you didn't even cut out the Ghostbusters segment. Do you remember that? I was like, oh, can you cut out the part where I forgot about the Ghostbusters name and you left that in?
You never told me to do that.
I did. I said it like 3 times. Gary, do you remember that?
Nope.
Oh
You
my
didn't say
god.
that.
Whatever.
You didn't say that.
Whatever.
If you want it done, put it in writing.
Oh my god. Okay.
Text me.
Okay. Let's focus because I feel like my brain is melting.
I want chicken. I made fried chicken the other day, and I want fried chicken.
You want to go get fried chicken after this?
No, I made fried chicken.
Can I come over?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I made dinner tonight. Did I tell you that?
Okay.
It's really good.
Good for you.
You want to know what I made?
Sure.
I made like potatoes and sausage and peppers and
Bangers
onions.
and mash.
Like
Bangers
all
and
on
mash.
all on a tray with some parchment paper and like olive
Bangers and
oil
mash.
and garlic and thyme and
Bangers and mash.
whatever and mix it all together.
Bangers and mash.
Roasted in the oven for about 45 minutes on 425 degrees.
Bangers and mash.
It was
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
When you have mashed potatoes and sausage. Bangers and mash.
okay. Well,
So
it was bangers and awesome.
It was good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm happy we got that out. Okay. Back to the movie. We're talking about Maximus. He's been enlisted into slavery essentially, or sold into slavery, and he doesn't want to fight because he doesn't want to be another spectacle for the Empire. And I think at this point, obviously he's hurt from whatever his battle and trying to, I guess. Where does he get cut on the shoulder? What happens when he gets cut on the shoulder again? I'm trying to remember. Who's the one that cuts him on the shoulder? Is it when he's trying to escape? Is that when that happens? Because I'm trying to
Yeah, I
remember.
think it's in when he comes back for his wife and kid, and it's somewhere around there, I think.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. And his wounds have infected, right? He's mentally distraught. He doesn't have a lot left to fight for, so he doesn't want to fight. He kind of just wants to take it lying down. And then he realizes after a gladiator match that, hold on, if I'm doing this gladiator spectacle and eventually the Caesar wants all of us to come together and fight in front of him, then that might be how I can get close to the emperor in a way, right? And so he decides to kind of start fighting back and teaching people like, oh, wow, you can actually come out of the gladiator ring to survive. Essentially, it's a death sentence, right? It's a death sentence. You're going in there to die. You're going in there to be killed for the entertainment of others, right? And so when all of a sudden there's these peasants or people who are condemned to die and wounded who start killing like imperial legionaries and people who are skilled combat masters in their own right, it's like, whoa, like that peasant is actually really good at fighting, right? And so obviously Russell
Spaniard.
exactly Maximus has been in the empire and army for a majority of his life, and he's fought for Rome, so he knows the tactics, right? And he created the tactics in a way, right? And he's a very powerful warrior, right? So he kind of gets the kind of grinds the ranks a bit, or climbs the ranks, I guess, of the gladiator people, right? And he starts to get a name as the Spaniard, essentially. Now back at the capital, obviously we meet Commodus's child. I forget his name, but he's going to be
not Commodus's child.
Sorry, Lucilla's child. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah. But Lucilla, his sister, and Commodus are kind of like they're becoming a thing
against her wishes.
Against the chagrin of
this isn't Game of Thrones.
Lucilla
in that aspect.
Yes, but Commodus wants it to happen. Whatever. Like, okay, it's normal at the time. Not normal
at the time.
now.
Movie trope. Yeah.
Thank God. And Lucilla's kid is essentially the main protagonist now of the Gladiator 2. So that's where the new story is going to follow up. Obviously,
that's okay. I see.
At the time of recording this, we haven't seen it yet, so we don't know how it's going to shake up. But we do know that Lucilla's kid there at the end of the movie and whatnot is going to be essentially the main protagonist.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Now we meet the kid. We meet Lucilla. Find out Commodus wants to essentially bring the Gladiator games back to the capital because, well, they've been postponed because of the war times and stuff like that. But he wants to bring them back to honor his father's wishes, which is kind of funny because I think his father's against
memory. Yeah, he wants to honor his father's memory, but his father was the one who got rid of them. So it's kind of ironic that he's like...
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that that's the way he wants to do that. But he wants to create a spectacle and do whatever, right? And so he starts kind of employing different groups of gladiators and stuff to have, I guess, essentially disposable events. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like one time
you've got 150 days of games and you're killing a dozen people at least per day. It's like you're going through a lot of people.
Right. So Maximus, or Spaniard as he goes by now, is kind of part of this group of people that gets to go because the emperor is kind of hired them out.
They can.
Yeah, exactly, because they want a big spectacle.
Yeah.
And they're peasants anyway who are sent to die for, right?
And not just peasants. There's one point where they mention like you've got mathematicians and like skilled people that are just being taken and you're fighting now.
Yeah, exactly. Now in the arena, essentially, I guess at the capital, what's the capital called again?
Rome.
On the main building What's the thing? What's the name called? Is it Malta? Malta? Oh no, I'm thinking of where the sorry, that's where the Colosseum is. Like that they built for this movie. I'm sorry. Yes, obviously the capital is Rome. Malta, Malta is the island off of Sicily or like Italy, Sicily, whatever, south of Sicily, that the shooting of the Colosseum took place. They built
Oh, okay.
they built the Colosseum there, and they took it down. It was like a 7 month. I'll just
It was like
Frigate.
It was.
I'll just take the set. It took over $1 million to build in 7 months. They built it in Malta on that island, and they took it down and whatnot, and they rebuilt it for Gladiator 2. That's coming out in theaters. They
Cool.
rebuilt it. I don't know what it costs to do that because that isn't out there yet. But yes,
Cool.
they did rebuild the entire thing. And Russell Crowe did an interview on that about how you like had to question what year he was in because it was like going back in time to see.
Well, he's
to
not
see
involved in the new one, is he?
He's not. The screenwriters and stuff like that have reached out to him a bunch to ask him questions, and he expressed his disdain for that because he's like, "Listen, guys, I'm not there for this world. I died in the first one. I shouldn't have any say." But yes, he did. He did attending the music video festival. He did see that in Malta,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Wow, that's incredible!" Right?
Yeah.
He wasn't expecting that to
Yeah.
to happen, right? And so, anyways, that's what I mean. Sorry, is there was a word outside on one of the buildings of the Colosseum that I was trying to remember.
I don't remember what it was.
And I was like, oh, that must be like the capital or whatever. Obviously, yeah, Rome is the capital, right?
I was confused.
Where the real Colosseum is,
Yeah.
of course. But yes, the Colosseum that they built for this movie is in Malta.
Cool.
And is now rebuilt again currently for the second one. Anyways, Russell Crowe, Maximus, he's fighting in the capital of Rome, and essentially, he's a part of a group of gladiators that survives. They survive and defeat a bunch of legionaries on chariots and stuff. And sorry, am I hearing things? Sorry, I
didn't say anything.
Coming. Sorry, man, I gotta focus up. He survives, and with his team because they stick together and have like actual battle strategies, and he really impresses the emperor. Commodus is like, wow, I wanna meet this guy, right? And he goes down to meet Maximus and orders him to take off his helmet, and he finds out that, oh shoot, it's Maximus, the guy who I sent to die, essentially. And he would kill him right there, but he can't because all the people are. He's a hero of the people now, essentially.
Yeah.
Much like when he was a general, he's the Spaniard, and he's like the people love him, right? So he does this thing, like thumbs up or down or whatever.
That was the thing.
If they should kill, it's actually reversed though in the actual history because the thumbs. What does he do? He does thumbs up if he can live, right?
Yeah.
In the movie, it's actually thumbs down if they live, thumbs up to kill them in actual history.
Yeah, right.
But they didn't want audiences to be confused.
Yes.
So yeah,
it makes more sense from a movie perspective. But I do remember reading or hearing that it was reversed.
But when I watched it, was actually confused. Why is he giving a thumbs down? For some reason,
like death, life.
Yeah, so it actually made me more confused having it that way,
Yeah.
in their attempts to make it less confusing.
Fair enough.
But I was probably overthinking it too, right? So whatever, because I'm analyzing it, right? And so he can't kill him anymore. So he's gonna try and kill him essentially in the ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so batch by batch, Russell Crowe keeps essentially winning. Meanwhile, Lucilla's trying to break him out so he can get back to his army to essentially storm the capital and have a little coup so that they can truly restore power to the people, because Commodus, the new Caesar, or the emperor, or whatever, doesn't want to put that power back. He wants to keep being an emperor, right? He doesn't want to restore faith in like the council or anything like that and be a republic. The Senate. He wants to be the guy, right?
Yeah.
And I think that plays well in his character because he really craves it. That's what he
just wants
kills
validation.
his father for. He kills his father for it, right?
Yeah, he just wants validation. So having the validation to the people is kind of like an FU to everybody who said he wasn't going to do anything, including his father.
Yeah. And they do this thing too where they put Maximus against one of like the real big guys. I forget his name, but he's like one of the massive warriors. And they throw him in the arena with him to essentially fight him. Again, it's another death sentence for him. Under armored Maximus against this heavily armored guy with a big battle axe. And it's against tigers too.
Yeah.
There's like trapdoors with tigers that they jump out and spring out. Whatever. Fun fact about this scene though. They are real tigers. Not CGI. Those are real tigers. Ridley Scott had 5 real tigers on set. Okay?
Well, we know where the budget went.
They weren't supposed to go within 15 feet of Russell Crowe.
Oh.
That was the rule. One of them got within 2 feet of Russell Crowe. And the shot in the film where he swipes at Russell Crowe, that is a mistake that like completely invalidated his contract, whatever. That is a real tiger actually swiping, trying to claw out the legs of Russell Crowe within 2 feet of him, and they left that shot in the film.
Hey, if you got the real one, use it.
And thankfully no one was hurt. I mean, Russell Crowe got hurt many times throughout this production. He like popped out a few shoulders and stuff like that, and he lost the feeling in his fingers for about 2 years apparently, or like his 2 forefingers. What are the 2 forefingers? Is that
Index and middle?
right? Apparently he lost his feeling in the fingers, right? Yeah, but those are real tigers.
Wow, that's why they look so real.
Yeah. I would have thought it was funny. You're like, man, the CGI on those tigers was terrible.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It was so bad. It was like
Yeah.
laughably bad for the time, and I'm like, my God, those are real.
Yeah,
tigers.
right.
That would be hilarious because
Yeah.
people expect the hyper realistic
Yeah.
whatever. But no, yeah, that was real.
Cool.
Crazy. I don't want to know what the OH&S guy was like on that set.
Or the insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, you want to do what?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Blue Cross is not gonna let this happen, dude. Like, yeah. But yeah, that was real. There was 5 real tigers. I don't know if they were all utilized at once. I'm assuming not. Probably only 1 or 2 at a time. But yes.
Or they could have just done the scene for real. Real gladiator fight,
Now I know what shot they're talking about when he like swipes at Russell Crowe. But
Yeah.
when I looked at that, I didn't like think, oh, that looked really real. I was like, oh man, like this is an intense fight, right?
Yeah.
But it is an interesting thing being like, that actually happened, and it was a thing that, it was choreographed, but not as close as it actually was. It was supposed to be a 15 feet away thing, not that's essentially how close it was, or back here,
Yeah.
and that's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, like having real in a way, there's like a bunch of anecdotes of John Rhys Davies on the set of Lord of the Rings. He played Gimli, and he was notorious for not wanting to rehearse fight scenes. And so the stunt guys were like, okay, try not to hit us, obviously, but if you do, like, it's okay, just like try not to, right? So he would just be like, all right, how many guys are coming at me? And they'd be like, well, 5. Okay, what order? Well, me, then me, all right, let's go. And then he just full on hit them, right? Like just absolutely going ham. But it contributes to the intensity of his character. And like when you see him doing that fighting, the fight scenes with Gimli in Lord of the Rings, like they're just so well, like he just captures the character. And it's probably partially because he injured a whole bunch of stuntmen doing this.
yeah, no, he's an hilarious character. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
actually.
he's so good.
I think Aragorn's my favorite, honestly, but like,
Yeah.
but I do think Gimli's
Gimli's
just hilarious.
one of my favorites.
And I loved him in the Lego games, which sounds so weird to say, but when they made the Lord of the Rings video games, he's just so funny. But anyways, you're like, okay, buddy.
Nobody tosses a dwarf.
Lucilla tries to essentially get him out and host this coup, but he gets caught, Maximus, and captured by Joaquin Phoenix or Commodus, and he's essentially like, okay, perfect. Like now you're not going anywhere. Right? I know my sister was up to something, right? And trying to betray me, who he loves so dearly, not in a good way, or in a good way. Well,
No.
yeah, it's kind of tough. Like he does not love her in
a sister-brother relationship.
yeah,
way.
yeah. But I would actually argue too that their relationship isn't loving at all. Well, it's not me. He loves her or whatever's in love with her. She obviously doesn't love him. But like, also, I think at at a certain point is almost more of a lustful relationship in a way, and not more of like he's in love, right? It's more of like, he's in love with the thought of having someone that loves him. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
I think
Yep.
I think there's not a lot of love, and I think it's more of just like a lust.
He just wants somebody to love him.
right. So yeah, he knows something's up, right? And
Yep.
and obviously Lucilla can't do anything about it because he's the emperor,
He's
and
threatening your son.
so he takes this little dagger or whatever it is, and he punctures a hole in Russell Crowe's lung or Maximus's lung, and he's like, okay, perfect. Now you're gonna fight me, and I'm gonna kill you in front of all the people to establish like dominance, because the people are starting to
Make
look.
himself look stronger, right? If he can kill the guy that's been winning all the Gladiator games, then he looks like a big man.
He's more of a people person even at this point, like, or a champion of the people than the emperor himself.
Right.
Because he's this guy that was sent for to die in a random province, I guess, like in northern Africa.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now he's a champion, right?
Yeah.
And he kills everyone, and he spares the life. He directly, goes against. He disobeys or goes against the wishes of the emperor because the emperor wants him to like kill or whatever the guy from the tiger fight, the one guy, Gladiator. But Maximus is like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to spare his life. So now he's defied the emperor, but people aren't focusing on that. He's like, wow, this is a wise champion of the ring. This is a strong man. This is someone who we can champion, and this is someone who is merciful in a time where there's no mercy to be had when tigers are chasing you and a guy who has 3 times as much armor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it would be like handing someone a knife and then like a bicycle helmet, and then all of a sudden you look at like another guy and you're like, okay, here's an AR-15 and a Kevlar vest.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, now fight. You know what I mean? That's like essentially the equivalent I can think of.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe an AR-15 like is dramatic in that sense, right? But right, it would be like a little.
I got you.
You know what I mean? It's like that point I'm making, right?
Yeah,
And
I got you.
all the odds are stacked up against this guy, and so obviously Commodus is sick and tired, and he can't just kill Maximus just randomly because the people will know something's up, and they'll lose all their morale in a way, essentially, because they'll have no more champions.
Faith in him, and he could suffer a revolt. I mean, how many in the real world? How many emperors were killed by assassins?
Probably quite a few. That open mouth sneeze was crazy, dude.
It was an open mouth.
It was open nose for sure, though.
What do you mean? What, supposed to offend you?
But essentially, yeah, Maximus has been stabbed, and now his lung is punctured, so he can barely breathe. And Commodus is gonna kill him in the ring.
But that don't work.
Well, he's gonna do that because now the people are like, if he does die, they're gonna be like, okay, perfect, he killed him legitimately, right? There's some legitimacy.
But then he dies.
Yeah, he dies. They fight. He dies.
Bing bong. Done. And then Russell Crowe staggers around for a bit and then dies. The end.
Yeah, that's essentially what happens. Maximus reaches out to the afterlife, which I thought was kind of like a sweet little touch. So like he's trying to find his family.
Yeah.
And he goes to his house in the afterlife to reunite with his wife and kid. Commodus bleeds out, and Lucilla runs over to Maximus, who essentially like bleeds out on the ground and dies. And I think that's a very good way to end it. Obviously sometimes you write yourself into a hole and you're like, okay, I gotta kill the main character, and it's like because you don't know how to end it. I think this fits perfectly.
I think it totally does. And it also, to me, it seems like a logical ending.
It does.
I mean, the chances of surviving through a gladiator fight in a society like Rome for a long time is so slim. Like, that it just, and it is a good ending because in a way it's what he wants, right? Because I mean, after his wife and kid are killed, what does he have?
The only thing he wants is revenge because he spent his whole life fighting.
Right.
So he continues to do that, and the second his revenge is done, he can finally put his sword down and go back to his wife and kid.
Right.
Right?
And in a way, I think that is almost the ending he wanted.
Right.
Like, it's almost a better ending than if he survived.
Exactly, because what is he going to do?
Right.
And so that's exactly the point I'm going to make here with this fact. Russell Crowe, or Maximus, was supposed to survive. He wasn't going to die. They created it on set one day. I don't know if it was when they were filming this scene, but Ridley Scott was like, he said to Russell Crowe, "Listen, it makes no fucking sense that you're gonna be alive right now because what are you gonna do? Build an effing pizzeria on the outskirts of Rome?"
Yeah.
And Russell Crowe was like, "Oh yeah, I guess whatever." And so yeah, they made that up on set. They
Yeah.
changed the ending, and they were like, "No, Russell Crowe or Maximus is gonna die, right?" And they were like, "Okay, boom." And I think that fits completely.
Oh, totally.
Because it's like, yeah, he's fought his whole life for this empire
Yeah.
to be exactly how he wants it. And now in that last moment when he's like, he's restoring the power of the emperor to, all the other, now that the emperor's dead, all the other people who were loyal to him before in his army are now like back loyal to him.
Yeah.
And so he's like, he has his final decree of like the things he wants to see and be done from, what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
The senator.
No, like Caesar. What Marcus Aurelius?
Yeah.
He gives him Marcus
right.
Aurelius's
Right.
final
Marcus Aurelius's final
decree.
wishes. Yeah.
And then falls over and dies, which I think is a nice touch.
Yeah.
Because it sets up like I think the next one pretty nicely in a way of like, oh, like obviously it's going to be in our Gladiator movie and it stars this kid, so something's going to go wrong that this kid gets into to be a gladiator. But it does set up the fact nicely that like, okay, Marcus Aurelius's final wishes are going to be
honored.
They're going to be honored in a way, right? And so he dies, and I think that fits perfectly.
Yeah.
I think that does it really well.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. They foreshadow it
Yes.
with those shots of him walking through the grass with the hand and some of the shots of his wife and kid. Like they foreshadow it really well, and they link that, like you said, he reaches out, but like they link it to those shots that you've been seeing through the whole movie, and it really ties the whole story together at the end.
They did that nicely too. It's not like a super highly saturated music video world. It's like it's kind of like a toned down, deep dark blue almost.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like I think it works. And one little touch I really love about this ending that I was thinking about is Lucilla, who the sister of Commodus and like forced into like loving him. They both are dead on the ground, and Lucilla runs into the ring, and she runs to Maximus, not her brother.
Yeah.
Not her technical like lover.
Yeah.
She runs to Maximus, and I think that's a really nice touch.
Oh, for sure.
And obviously, like, what else was she gonna do? I don't think she was sad to see Commodus go, but I think that would have been powerful for the people watching.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hold on a second, the love interest or whatever, the right hand lady, and sister, daughter of Marcus Aurelius, is running over to console and say goodbye to the random gladiator before her dead brother.
Yeah.
That would have been really powerful for the people to be like, wait, maybe there was more happening to the story, right? And yeah, maybe that would come across as like traitorous to the people who are really loyal to the current emperor, but that is just there, and I think that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I have more facts here.
Yeah, it's here.
I'm gonna mess up this pronunciation. Jonty Yates, I think, the costume designer.
I don't know how to say it.
Guess how many costumes were made for this movie?
Oh, God.
I'm gonna make you guess. There's another little game.
3,712.
10,000 costumes were created.
Oh, wow.
Do you want to know how many individual armor pieces there were?
2,100.
30,000 individual armor pieces were created for this film. So there was 10,000 costumes, over 10,000 costumes, and 30,000 pieces of armor. So when you think of it,
to the costume designers.
helmet, leggings,
Okay,
chest plate,
yeah.
right?
Huge,
I would imagine.
Yeah. Huge props to the costume designers. There's a reason it won.
Yeah,
costume design.
their team created all that, and I'm sure they're probably being reused or utilized in some way for the sequel.
And I mean, like when you look at it, it's so visually immersive.
Yeah.
Like like that. Just even the set design, and like I don't know how much of it was CG and how much it was real. I mean, they built a whole Coliseum, so
they built that whole. I know,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. They
Like,
put
it
you
just-
right in the world.
yeah. And that's one thing I like about it is like they really show the city and they show the scale, and they
The
also
city is all CGI,
okay,
and that was
but
pushing the
still-
limits of what was available at
but
the time.
it's still really good. But
Yes.
the other thing, like, speaking of scale and like this, I feel like they show the scale of the world. Like when you
Yes.
think about like the size of the Roman Emperor and the means of transportation available at that time, like it would take days, weeks, months to get around.
Right, because we're in places like whatever
Germania,
town, Germania,
Germania, and then
we're
all the way in southern Italy
and Northern Africa,
and northern
right?
Africa.
Right, yeah.
And you think of the scale of time that passes in that, and I think they do a really good job of like of showing that in like the writing and the acting, and
Yeah.
it gives you a sense of the scale of the world that they're operating in.
Yeah. It yeah, it feels right. And I
Yeah.
feel like they show the scale and intensity of this better than Ridley Scott's like newest like Napoleon.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Like I feel like there was some missed opportunities for stuff like that in Napoleon, and I think
Yeah.
in our Walking Phoenix movie, ironically, but I think they do that very well in this film. Even if it's like the city is CGI and maybe some of it looks kind of like the Colosseum,
Oh man.
fantastic, right?
Yeah.
It's so good. The costume design is incredible, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's easy enough, right, to slap on a costume and have like the torchlight and go through a stone hallway. You can do that anywhere, right? But when we're talking about certain things like the costume design and the props and stuff like that, the chariots,
Yeah.
those are all. That's really a love letter to
Yeah.
to arts and crafts, right?
Yeah.
And it shows what you can do, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
they,
and even just each individual audience member, if they built that whole Coliseum, I
Yes.
bet you that was full of extras, right?
100%.
Like, and can you imagine that would be like like we compared it to a football game atmosphere, like a Super Bowl atmosphere,
Costume extras. It's
right?
like if we took everyone who entered Mosaic Stadium, gave them a suit of armor, and said, "Okay, cheer."
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right.
And then we
and
filmed
then
the
you
riders
film a
running around.
gladiator fight down there. Can you imagine even just for those actors who were filming the gladiator fight,
Yeah.
and you have people actually cheering, like it would feel like you're actually there, and just the intensity that you'd be able to move and act with would be amazing.
Yeah, it's really a love letter to all that stuff, and
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
I think they did a fantastic job. You can see why they were nominated and won in that
Yeah,
costume design area,
Yeah.
especially the helmets and the engravings and stuff like that.
and the
like-
chest plates,
Like his chest plate having his two horses on them, like it's incredible.
yeah.
I'm trying to look at what other things we got. The real tigers on set, which is crazy. Maximus living. Okay, last final fact because I think we're coming up on time. Hey,
Probably, yeah.
yeah, we'll see. What are we at, Gary?
1 hour and 9 minutes.
Whoa.
And we'll cut some of that. Some of that'll get cut.
This film sparked interest in Rome, like revitalized it in a way called the Gladiator effect. Now there's articles talking about did this film actually cause like a gladiator effect and make people fall in love with Rome again and do stuff like that and the ideas of it.
Ethan, how often do you think about the Roman Empire?
3 times a day, and ironically 5 times a day after seeing this movie. No, but there's articles proving and disproving
Yeah.
this theory.
Well, I think it's hard to ignore though when you have a cult classic. Like think about any of the cult classics that we keep referencing, like Wayne's World, with all the references and little like
Right.
lines and things. So if one movie can change it so that the majority of people in a society know certain references, why wouldn't it make sense that one movie would make a whole bunch would re-spark interest in a certain topic?
It's hard to argue that a film that grossed $400 million wouldn't have some effect on people
It totally
in a
would.
cultural way,
Right.
right? And like obviously it's sold, obviously it's still talked about, right? And so again, it's one of those films that's
Yeah.
going to go down as like a must see in a way, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, the whole psychology of the gladiator effect, I'm not going to sit here and debate whatever. I don't have time for that. But I think it is hard to deny that there wouldn't have been some sort of impact, even if it was
Yeah.
minuscule and not as hyped up as they want to make the gladiator effect sound. It was there.
Totally. I mean, I want to, do a bunch of research now to confirm certain things that I saw in there, and this leads nicely into the historical aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and when you're watching a movie that is supposed to be, or it is touted as being kind of historical, like you want to do that research and make sure. In my opinion, I always want to do that. And in this one, it's not historical, right? It's set in a historical time with a couple of historical characters
Right.
referenced, but it is not historically accurate in terms of the story. But I do think it's historically accurate in terms of the atmosphere that they've created. And we kind of touched on that
Sure.
with the scale, but I think like even like you were saying, oh, I just don't like that decision with the, killing his wife and kids right away, and just the scumminess of it. And it's like, I agree with you, but at the same time, I really like it because it's a good filmmaking decision, and it feels like what would happen. And
It makes
feels,
me angry.
right? And that's what it's supposed to, and that's what helps you feel for Russell Crowe's character. And I just really think that is historically accurate. Some of those psychological choices, and just the brutality of any movie set in that time period, just the wanton violence and killing and disregard for human life, and people of a lower like status or class. And so in that regard, I think they captured that very nicely.
Yeah, and as you were talking there too, I was thinking about something like as we thought about it through this episode, I made the point of like, oh, I wasn't in love with the idea of his wife and kid immediately being killed like that, right? And yeah, even as I said it, right, it makes me angry, and that's a good thing, right? I think what actually just needed to happen, the more I think about it, that maybe I was trying to articulate, I wish I could insert this right into that segment, is I wish they would have just shown more of his troops and soldiers, a little bit more of their mentality during all this, right? Because obviously they followed him into battle for years, right? For the glory of Rome. And now they have to be loyal to the new emperor, so they're going to do as the new emperor says, right? But I wish they showed just a bit more of that aspect of like an internal struggle in a way, right? Where they know they're going to be acting on the wishes. Even if it happens right before Russell Crowe is killed, he does a line like, at least give me like a warrior's death or soldier's death or whatever, right? Maybe just have like a quick conversation between them and Maximus of like, I served in your army for years, right? And now this is what I have to do, right? And
Yeah, but it wasn't. The ones who killed him
Right,
were the
they're-
royal guard.
right, they're the royal guard, whatever, right? But I do think having some
Yeah.
I know that
I know where
you're
you're coming
Commodus's guy.
from.
I just think showing that kind of struggle, I think
Yeah.
would have, in my opinion, benefited it in a way just a bit.
I don't think it matters. I really don't think
I
it
mean,
matters.
maybe
I don't
it
think
doesn't.
his soldiers play a big enough role for it to really matter what they think.
Right. That's true. That's true. But the whole film is about restoring power to the people in this
Yeah.
army and whatnot, and all these people who are loyal to Rome and what Rome should be.
Yeah.
So I do think that in of itself, and like and what our main character is fighting for, does affect it somewhere, even if they're just side characters or no line extras. There is obviously a turmoil going on, right? Like within some of these people, right? They know they have to be loyal to the emperor,
Yeah.
do as the emperor says,
Yeah.
but they also understand that, like, listen, man, maybe it's a kinship that I think even I will never understand, because I'll never understand going into battle for say a decade with someone and fighting underneath them and coming out and being away from my family for that like long, right? It's just something that I'm trying to imagine,
Yep.
and I feel
That's
like
fair.
that's
Totally
something they
fair.
could have shown more of. They do show a little bit of it, right, in some of his generals and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but they don't show a ton of it. But
Yeah.
that's just something.
And there is some like you should think about Quintus at the very end, when Quintus kind of betrayed Maximus in a way.
Yes.
And so at the ending scene when he's fighting Commodus in the ring, and he's like, give me a sword, and he's like, you can see where his loyalty lies. So they did kind of show that, but I see what you're meaning right in the moment there. I see what you're saying.
Yes. And so yeah, that's kind of just something I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
There. The title I talked about, titles are great. Phenomenal acting, fantastic, great.
I like to it's very interesting, Joaquin Phoenix in this movie compared to like his Joker character.
Yes.
Like he does these dark, like sociopathic roles so well. Like even if he doesn't think this is his best
He
work,
plays a really good villain.
he does. But like, and not just villains, but like the mentally messed up villains. Like Joker is there's something wrong in the noggin there. The same thing with Commodus, and he plays those really well.
Yeah, he is I won't argue that he's a fantastic actor, and that's funny when I see these articles. I haven't seen Joker 2, but I see these articles of people like saying it's his fault that Joker 2 turned out the way it did, or blaming him partially, or the studio blamed him. And
It's because you did a musical, you fuck.
I think I think Joaquin Phoenix is a pretty decent actor.
He is.
He was
totally is.
nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
I think he's a great actor. The only reason Joker 2 failed is because you did a musical, you fucks. Anyway.
I think who was it? Michael Caine that won this year instead of Joaquin Phoenix. It was
I don't
someone.
follow the
It was
Oscars.
someone.
It doesn't matter to me.
That might have been the year prior. Whatever. I'm not. Don't listen to what I said because obviously don't have the research for that. But he was. I do in fact 100% can tell you he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Good pace and flow.
That was one thing. I really felt like they paced this movie. It's long. Like it's almost 3 hours.
2.5. Yeah.
Yeah, but I felt like at no point did I feel like, oh, this is a long movie. If I'm being honest, like I felt like they paced it really well in the story, and it just flowed, and it had a good rhythm to it.
I was definitely acknowledging the fact that I felt like it was a long movie, but in that same breath, I will say that I thought the pace was well done enough that I was never like, oh, this is boring. I was like, oh, I definitely know I've been here for 2 hours, right? But again, it was a very solid, well thought out 2 hours where, we start off on a big battle, and then when we go to talking scenes, I'm not bored that I'm in talking scenes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm learning stuff, there's lore, this is actually meaningful.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go back to some action and some gladiator fights. And so, yes, I think that kind of setting works very well for pacing because we can go from gladiator fight to exposition and talking about how we're going to try and break Russell Crowe out, back to another gladiator fight, an epic battle, and then like a coup. And they're like, okay, one more talking scene where we're like, okay, this is my evil plan. I'm going to destroy you now. You're dead to me. And then another fight, one last fight, right? And so I think the pacing is very solid. It is definitely a long movie, but I don't think this is one of those long movies that I'm like, I want it to end.
Right.
This is too much. They could cut more of this out. I definitely felt like watching this movie like, wow, it has a very solid flow. The flow in this movie is undeniably great. And again, compare it to Napoleon, I didn't feel the same way about that. I felt like there was some stuff that could have been like axed, right? And that's just my opinion. Not historical. Talk about that.
Talk about that.
We could talk more about that if you want, but I feel like
we need to.
Yeah. Okay. What are your final thoughts?
Great movie. Like it's overall a really solid movie. I don't have a lot of complaints on it. I enjoy it. I recommend it to anybody. Yeah.
A lot of my complaints came down to opinion. I mean, generally that's what a complaint is technically, but yeah. Like I think there are things that I personally like.
Yeah.
I didn't have many complaints. I think I talked about slow motion shots and how I wish they showed more of his family.
Yeah.
Right? And if that's the only problems you got to worry about, then I think this is a pretty freaking decent
good
film.
movie. I mean, it won Best Picture, so obviously somebody thought it was good. So.
Right. Let's
rate
hear
it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
There's a bug on that light.
Oh, it's so bright though. Is that affecting your decision negatively, or is it?
No, it's not affecting my decision at all. If that bug wasn't there, this would be a 10. Just kidding. No. I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, I have that written down. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I think it's just
It's a solid movie.
I took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Solid. It's solid. That's the best word I think to describe it. Costume is great. Like the set design.
Yeah.
The
story is
solid,
great.
Solid story.
Yeah.
The character of Diane at the end, some people look at that as like a cop out, but I think this is exactly what they needed to do.
Right.
I think
that's a wrap.
I think it works perfectly.
Yeah.
And I've closed my book. So
that's a wrap.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, and you know what? Can I say something quickly? I was so happy it was on Netflix because I was like getting ready, my credit card ready. I was like, okay, gonna go to the Cineplex store and buy it. And then I saw it was on Netflix, and I was like, sweet. Because I always know they like take it off of a streaming platform if they know the sequel is coming out or something like that, because they're like, okay, we're gonna make people pay for it right before they watch it or switch platforms, right? So that whatever, because everyone's gonna want to watch it before the next one comes out, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how the next one shapes up. And
I think we're gonna do it next week. I think that'll be our next episode.
Yeah,
that's the plan. So
yeah, we'll make it happen.
Yeah,
cool.
Stay tuned for Gladiator 2.
Thank you guys for watching the viewing room. This was a great episode, and we appreciate you for coming out. Remember, we do have a Patreon at Dufferin Ave Media, and we also have an Instagram at @theviewingroom_. Cool. Have a good day, guys.